Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
Manjay, is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's fine, sir. You can go ahead, sir.
I'm just uh, putting off my video so that we can
Yes, sir,
save.
yes, sir. The bandwidth will be good, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Participant, please mute your mics. Yes, sir, go ahead, sir.
So here, so my topic is CAD for additive manufacturing, and actually my lecture consists of two portions. I'll be talking about CAD for additive manufacturing. Another is in the second part, I will be talking about the various formats used in AM. Okay, like STL, AMF, and OBJ kind of MTL kind of format. So, uh, so here, uh, like the CAD for AM is a bit distinct from the other subtractive manufacturing processes. Uh, so here, um, you know, after Chuck Hull has invented this, laid the first foundation in 1981. The This particular area has gone into leaps and bounds, right? So here, this has become the latest what you call tool, which is helping us to hasten up the rapid development of a prototype. Okay, and it has created a kind of paradigm shift. Like paradigm shift means where you can't recognize the area. Like it is totally on a different footing. Just like now ordinary tube lights, incandescent bulbs, tube lights, all have become history, right? Uh, so what is this annotation? Okay, so here, so uh, mm, this is how like just like now LED technology has totally changed the lighting system. Now you don't see incandescent bulb on all these things. They have become history. All right, tube lights, fluorescent tubes. All these have become what do you call history. All right. So Anji garu,
Yes, sir. Sir, your slides are not moving, sir.
yeah, yeah. So here, just one down. Paida. Just one. So who is this U and Aarti? Who is this Aarti Rana? Hello? Manjay Garu?
Sir, slides are not moving, sir, I think, but once again exit and start, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Aarti Rana అని ఎవరు ఒక అనోటేట్ చేయాలి అని అన్నా దాంతో అంటారా ఇక్కడ అనుకున్నా ఐ థింక్ అక్కర్లా చెప్తాను ఇది నొక్కాలి యా
Sir, now it is fine, sir.
ఓకే దిస్ ఈస్ ఫైన్
Yeah, fine, sir, fine.
ఓకే యా
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
So here, sorry for the interruption. So we have we call this technology with the different names, right? Rapid prototyping, additive manufacturing, 3D printing, and they have a different interpretation of the same. So rapid prototyping is mainly medical oriented that kind of situation we use it. Whereas additive manufacturing is layered by layered manufacturing, and then 3D printing is fabrication of through deposition of material through using a print head or nozzle or other printing techniques. So here, you know, the process steps in AM. So initially we start with CAD model, then we convert it into STL format, and we transfer it to what do you call the machine. Then we use we do machine setup in terms of slicing and everything, and support structures, and then finally we remove the part and do post processing, and then application. We use it for a certain application, right? Post process of so this is how like AM steps in AM happens, right? And here, so here we have 3D printing design process and tools. So here we sometimes we use a 3D model capture using Kinetic Connect Fusion, and then we use CAD design to do Blender, AD Fusion, 360, Meshmaker. One of them we use, and then Mesh Mixer we use to repair the. So we have now like we get whenever we convert a file into STL format, so and slice it, we land up into certain troubles like topological degeneracy, and then what do you call geometric degeneracy. Then we land up into gaps. Anyway, while discussing about STL formats, we will discuss some of those issues here. And then anyway, you have slicer software like open source software like Cura is there. Slicer for Fusion. So there are so many softwares are there to help us, both proprietary as well as say for example Siemens NX is a proprietary, SolidWorks is a proprietary, whereas certain Cura and Autodesk Fusion 360, some are being even given as a open source software. So here, what we do is this is how, and these are the some of the 3D file formats we have. .stl. This is the most old and simple format. Describes an object as a series of linked triangles. We call it as tessellation. So unfortunately, this .stl file format doesn't contain any information regarding color, texture, material, file security, right? Whereas OBJ, I think this is again another format where best for color and high precision printing. Tessellation or free-form surfaces can be possible, and it has a what you call a paired format called .mtl. So material template file. So using these two things together, we can generate something like dinosaurs kind of Tesarosaurus, some kind of these kind of things we can create from because here we see a lot of what you call texture as well as colors. Different colors are possible. So using multi-jet printers, it is possible to directly make these kind of colorful models. So anyway, like AMF is the one latest new format which is coming up. So if you recall, even in the traditional CAD/CAM software, initially we used to have IGES, Initial Graphics Exchange Specification. But after that, people have found it is very, very inadequate for the when we look from PLM point of view, product life cycle management. So then they have come up with the step format. In between, we have PDES and everything. So now, anyway, people are slowly migrating to step format, because the step format will include all the future needs of a particular product, like supporting the entire product life cycle of the product. So anyway, .3MF is a format which is supported by the Microsoft. So this is how we these are the various options we have in the case of CAD for AM. Now coming to, let us look at into the how design to machines driver data preparation happens. So initially what is happening is you have a CAD file, right? And then you prepare a STL file, like it is nothing but a discrete approximation. So here, like you can see, like here the meshing density has is high. So the more the mesh density, then the more the accuracy of the so like accuracy increases with the increase in discretization, right? So here what we do, like here we take a 3D file, then we create STL file, and from we generate G codes and G codes. See, finally what is happening in AM is we are using only G and M codes, right? Particularly G codes, like linear interpolation, G01, G02, G00. It is nothing but combination of this. So from STL file to slicer. So this like discrete hollow shell, right? Like because we are only interested in the what you call peripheral shape of the each slice. So what is inside within a layer, it is immaterial for us, because we simply fill the material within that contour. So we are interested only. So what we are doing is we are slicing the given one here as we have shown here, right? And then for each slide you slice, you prepare a G and M codes. So slice by cross-section layers will be there, and accuracy, see accuracy varies with the slice thickness. So here you can see like as the number of slices are increased, the smoothness of this pyramid structure is increasing. So this is the STL file. You slice, if you slice with um, as you increase the uh, number of slice, the more the smoother of the smoothing of the surface. So from slice to G codes. So here what is happening is, so and what the slice file will generate is empty contours, right? So G code file will do contour filling. So you have this various patterns. So again, how you do contour filling is again it depends on the ultimate use of the component. So sometimes people use different kind of contour strategies to, in terms of increasing the what you call strength of the article, like um, to depending on the application of the component or product which is ultimately used, you have to decide your contour filling strategy, right? So and also like the what like how much overlap you want to create between the two contour. Again, it depends on the raster 2D area fillings, right? So here we are seeing here, like this is one kind of contour filling. You can choose even a zigzag or the in fact the lay direction also change, or it can be matrix type, right? You put on one side one layer and another, you start the layer in another direction. So here that is how like you do this, how this is how like AM process plan will happen. So here design to machines driver data preparation, again another subtle things that you have to keep in mind is here you can see that like how you are placing the orientation of the with respect to the nozzle direction, right? So now like for example, to this this but this kind of filling will will reduce the staircase effect, right? But whereas so you have to decide like what orientation will bring in less amount of staircase effect. So like so stair stepping orientation, and where is the support structures orientation will, where is the support structures. So orientation stair stepping is one of the part of your CAD. So before you send the for doing, you should also decide like what is the orientation with which you should generate the print this particular 3D object, so that 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 object will have less amount of surface roughness, so that you can minimize your post processing overhead. So here, like for example, layer thickness dictates the stair steps, and the layer thickness also dictates the build time. So for example, here, like here when the step size is higher, you see the more prominent this stair steps, right? But if you increase this, like increase the number of layers, you are able to reduce the surface roughness of this profile, right? So here, so you here you have to make a what you call a trade-off. If you increase the step size, maybe you can build the part more quickly, but at the same time, you may be compromising on the roughness of the surface roughness of the given object. So you have to decide what should be, because every time you need not produce a particular component with the same criteria of roughness. Sometimes roughness is maybe needed in a particular application. In that case, going for a very high number of what do you call layers will result in unnecessary waste of time and resources and cost. Okay, and then here like a support structure. So like this support structures is particularly a bit of nuisance in SLA, stereolithography, and FDM process. So these support structures you have to be very judiciously, like your orientation will decide how much support structure a particular object needs, right? So here like you can see some of the examples here given, like where our criteria for putting support structure is so that there is no sagging of the overhangs or some kind of geometrical inadequacies you can avoid. But at the same time, in your anxiety to have a better product, you should not end up having too many supports, because that will increase the post-processing task. So you should see, this is a producing a part, a particularly complex part, is a multi-objective uh, optimization situation. So you have to make a trade-off between support structure, surface roughness, uh, uh, slice thickness. So it is a multi-objective function, right? So uh, strength is needed to support part geometry, but it should be removed, but removed easily, right? So that you can do with in a very quick time, you can complete the post processing one. So so here this is like how your what decides your part orientation. So it mainly depends on the part's height in the build direction, because every AM process, most of the AM process have a what you call build volume. Like you cannot go on what you call build a part as you like. So you are constrained by the build volume of the machine that you have selected. Like, is it a 100 cube build volume or 200 cube build volume? So like 100 square cubic millimeters or 200 cubic millimeters. So you have to decide like so. Depending on the part orientation, like you can by slightly orienting the part, you can by placing it diagonally, probably you can accommodate more size of the part than if you put it in a conventional way. So anyway, we will see the example, some of the examples there. So then quality of selected surfaces or total surface quality, like staircase effect, how to avoid that. And the area of the base on which the part presents, right? What is the uh, area of the art? Do you want, like again, base area is again a constraint in certain, not in most of the cases, and mechanical properties of the part produced. So because as I told you in the previous slides, no, like you finally you use various contouring strategies to fill the cavity within a profile, right? So that fill direction is should be decided based on the mechanical part of the mechanical properties of the part produced. So like what is the, from which side the tensile forces and then which side the compressive forces happens. So whether your lay direction, see, normally your lay direction should be in the direction of the, like the tensile forces, right? So that they don't break easily. But if you're longitudinally, if you are selecting a wrong kind of lay direction of the contouring, profile contouring, then the part becomes, will be vulnerable for breaking. So you have to be careful about it. And then use of external support structure. So that means deciding in what kind of orientation you have to keep the part on the base plate of a machine is not a simple issue, right? It is a very complicated. So that's why I told you now, it is a multi-objective decision making. So you should able to accommodate the parts height. You should use as much less of external support structure. Your mechanical property should not be compromised. The area of the base plate should be utilized properly, and then quality of the selector surface. So because orientation will automatically decide your quality of selected surfaces, right? So because depending on the orientation, the staircase effect can be minimized or maximized. So now let us see some of the examples in this. Say this is the actually object in its designed orientation. This is how we want to finally use it, right? So this is a kind of truss where you put bolts here and this at the corner of a big assembly. So what is happening here is how to produce this. So if you have a you want to have maximum area of base you want to use, you put the part in this way in the AM machine, or you want a minimum area of contact with support. Like for example, here this is the support structure, right? So only this is the minimum. Whereas here it has a lot of support structures here and as well as here, because any time if the inclination is more than 45, definitely for most of the FDM process, STL, stereolithography situations, you need support structures. Only if it is less than 45-degree orientation with the base plate, then only you can avoid to some extent or minimize the use of support structures. So here you can see that you are minimizing the height of the, by placing it a different way, you can conserve on the height of the build volume. All right. Similarly, like facet roughness. So if you put like this, maybe you can reduce the facet roughness, and then like minimum volume of support. Like for example, this is supposed to reduce your minimum volume of support when compared with the rest of the orientation. So this is like you can refer this book. There are good examples. Patri K. Venuvinod. Incidentally, I can proudly say that he is one of our faculty who worked long back, maybe from 35 years back. He worked here in NIT Warangal. Later, he moved to Hong Kong Polytechnic. So Patri K. Venuvinod. So he has written a very beautiful book, Rapid Prototyping, Laser Based and Other Technologies, Springer. But unfortunately, it is a very costly volume, like costing around 11,000 rupees if you search in Amazon. But I think, as you know, uh, maybe you try to get this book uh, from somewhere, okay? Because it is a good book for beginners on AM, right? And then like here we have effect of build orientation, as I told you now, like if you uh, effect of layer thickness and length of the exposed particles. So if you put it a bit longitudinal way, like you can reduce the staircase effect of build orientation on part over strength. So here you can see that here you have tensile forces acting on this dark bone. Suppose if you are building this dark bone using with this kind of contours while filling the profiles, probably it can withstand more amount of mechanical forces like tensile forces than when you are generating the same dark bone across with a 90-degree orientation. So this is in 0-degree orientation. Now your lay direction is 0 degrees orientation. So you are generating like this, the shape of this dark bone, whereas you are generating this across. So automatically under tensile load, this particular dark bone is likely to break easily than this, because there is less bond strength between the layers. So you have to just as I told you, like building a part in in this AM is a multi-objective kind of trade-off. So you have to take care of the support structure, minimization of support structures. You have to see that the surface roughness is good. Then the what do you call build volume should be properly utilized. So many things are there. So it is a multi-objective decision making. So here we we see that this you should take care of this. So part orientation is generic cost model is like the total cost in is this is it consists of 4 major components, where CPRE, direct cost pre-processing. So it is a pre-processing, direct cost related to pre-processing. Then C-build, machine utilization of cost for building the prototype model, right? Because see, like time is money here. So how well you are able to increase the throughput from the machine. See, if you can produce more number of parts using within the same time, within a given time, that means your machine utilization is very good. Similarly, like C material like includes part material, part modeling material, and support material if different, and most post processing costs. So, for example, pre means like a design stage, like the salaries of the designer and whatever optimization kind of studies you are doing to decide the correct orientation so that you can minimize um, build time, and then surface roughness, and then total time to realize the component, right? So this is all this is all you have to take care of in this total cost. So post processing is, this is again another thing you should not forget, because sometimes sometimes it may be easy to remove the support structure, but sometimes it is very difficult. So you have to do a lot of you have to spend some time money to do prepare the material. Like sometimes you have to do some kind of post curing, depending on the kind of AM process you have. See, there are 7 AM processes now. So certain processes need a lot of like powder metallurgical, it's like a powder bed fusion. If you take, like it needs a lot of post-passing heat treatment, right? So you have to consider that particular past also. So like this, so this is, we call it as a generic cost model, right? So using that, you should able to roughly estimate what is it costs, right? So here, this is the direct material cost, right? Both part modeling material as well as support material, because normally support materials are different and they should be easily dissolvable, so that you can quickly push process, right? So this is how like the cost breakdown happens in a AM situation. And now coming to uh, um, support structure, and see, normally printed support structures are needed in FDM and SLA, stereolithography. In fact, our Charles Hull or Chuck Hull, uh, the first machine in AM is SLA only, stereolithography, right? Like processes without a supporting solid power, such as like there are certain selective laser centering, like they may not need support structure because the powder itself acts as a support. So whereas for in FDM and SLA, like you need to, whenever you are producing using FDM and SLA, depending on the path orientation, surface, the given profile orientation, you have to decide about where you have to put the support structures, right? See, once the part is produced, you should also know how to remove the support structures without damaging the main product or component. So here, general rule of thumb is most extrusion based printers can support overhang angles less than 45 degrees. So here, uh, like so in if the uh, overhangs are less than 45 degrees, then you need not even provide support structures. So that is the general rule of thumb, right? Because the a slight bit of overhang is normally automatically taken care of if your overhang is hang angles are less than 45 degrees, and then adding support structure with supplies. So wherever there is a need, like for example, here you are seeing this is the image of a Easter Island, you know, Easter Island, which is a very remote place in Pacific Ocean, where people sculpted various these kind of image on rock. Suppose you want to make a replica of it, so you can see here, like wherever the overhangs are more than 45 degrees, automatically you have to put support structure, say under the eyes and under the nose, under the ears, and then under the chin, because they are the overhangs where the overhang angle is more than 45. So you have to compulsorily go for support structure, and you should see that a way to remove these structures once the object is realized. So like, and unfortunately, you have a simplified 3D. There are certain third party or open source um, software are there where you can using you can like the software itself will help you to finalize suggest ways to include the support structure. So for example, here like here to save money on the uh, support structure, it's like you can see this eye section here. What he is doing is he is using different density of the same support structure. Like separator, it is of a bit higher density, then main support is there, and then rest of the the one which is touching the given object as what you call, like it is needle support. All right. So he is trying to optimize the use of support structure so that you can save support structure materials also. And here, when you are putting final support is in the form of CRS or needles. See, CRS means rough edge. CRS, it is a Spanish word for rough edges. So, like Sierra Nevada mountains are there in US. So, because they are very, very, what do you call, needle-like mountains. So, rough mountains. So, like see here also, what we are doing is by providing only needle supports, you are reducing the need for, you can say, support structure. So, and in fact, like here, this is how, like, because here the like it is the support is less than 45 degrees. So to some extent it is self-supported. There is no need for what you call support here, right? So only here where the more than 45 degrees angle of support, like there you have to provide support structure. So here support design, like for example here, what you are doing is if you here there is a like he has put a support, but it's like a separator layer. So like here he has not provided any explicit support structure. So what is happening is there is likely to there is a likelihood of peeling over. The peeling effect can happen. Like for example, just like in our day to day, like if you take this the routine, you take now normally some kind of wood is coming now, where it is layered. So in when you are using that kind of wood, suddenly I forgot the name for it. What is it? Nowadays, like we are using for layered wood. So like that, it will peel off. So the best way is provide a support structure like this. Here you use separator and here you use a support structure, right? So it prevents a deformation and curling through part supports. Unsupported cantilevered beams or similar structure may deform without support. Properly attach layers under support, right? This is the difference. So this is how, like the example of slicing of a part, model slicing, and model slicing and contour data organization. Like so, this is the see, as I told you, like how you decide the number of layers. So like first of all, you have to decide the thickness of the layer, right? That decide the number of total number of slicing. So because what is the Z max and Z minimum, that gives the total distance the your nozzle has to travel to complete the, and here so Z max and Z min will be the extreme Z coordinates of this. So here what we are trying to explain here is we are trying to calculate the point of intersection between the slicing plane and the facet, a triangular facet. So you have to carefully see, you should able to generate that interference. Like for example, when we this particular aspect we will discuss in when we are generating some of the when we discuss these issues, when we are discussing the STL file formats. Like because see, your slicing plane should appropriately slice all the edges of a facet, so that like you get a very beautiful profile. But suppose sometimes your slicing plane, if it doesn't pass through the say it penetrates or penetrates a facet, then you have lot of nuisance values of topological degeneracy, geometrical degeneracy, and then another nuisance is gaps. You know, all sorts of issues will come up. So this is the you from using slicing plane, you should able to get the contour data, right? And here there are a lot of algorithms are there, strategies are there, like whether you try to populate clockwise all the interface points, like here PB is nothing but point at which slicing plane is intersecting with the one of the facets of the triangle, right? So how you try to populate, how you try to arrange them so that you complete the profile of a slice, right? So that is, again, there are people have invented certain strategies of how to first of all generate these interference points, and again how to order them, whether you order them clockwise or anti-clockwise, and how you connect them. All right. So that is how you. So it again depends this interference, like interacting points P. How you like it depends on the triangulation density you are using. There are so many other factors. So this is again a good problem area for optimization. All right. So here, like you were laying, see, you were as two slicing procedures. So here you see like peak surface loss with uniform slicing, peak features preserved with adaptive slicing. So here you can see that like there is a clear cut, like in this corners we have lost it in this case, right? This is a lot of gap is come. Like similarly here there is a lot of gap coming, but whereas here to reduce the staircase effect, so he has used adaptive slicing. So wherever there is a change in the direction, there you increase the number of slices. So here there is a lot of curvature. So for example, here this step size is very big, but whereas here the step size is very small. This is what we call it as, depending on the curvature of the profile, you try, the software should automatically do this adaptive slicing, so that most of the peak features are not lost, they are preserved. So that is the beauty of adaptive slicing. And again, there are people who have done a lot of PhDs on this adaptive slicing. So like how to improve the surface finish for any irregularly surfaced object. So what are some of the thumb rules or heuristics one can use to improve the surface finish? So here, by going for adaptive slicing, they're able to preserve the peak features. And here skin contour determination. So here you can see the example of a frustum, right? Frustum is nothing but a sliced portion of a pyramid. So here this is the slicing plane. So here you can see that all these. So this is the frustum, which is tessellated in this form, right? It is a simple tessellation. So every trapezium is sliced into two triangles, and when this slicing plane is slicing through this, so here you can see that this is one part of the contour and this is another contour, and this is, so how you get this? So this, I have told you now, like this slicing plane will cut at certain points, these triangles. So these intersecting points, you connect them and form a contour. And how you connect them? Either through clockwise or anti-clockwise. So that again depends on the philosophy of the software that is used. So this is how you generate the profile of each slice. You take a slicing plane, see what are the intersection points between slicing plane and the triangular facet, and then find out their coordinates, right? Vector which are in the vector format, and then arrange them in a descending order or ascending order, depending on, and then you try to connect all those intersecting points. Then you get a profile. So this is how you generate the a facet model, slicing and contouring data, initial sorting, right? You sort it that way. So in here, identification of internal external contours, you have to again here a lot of algorithms come into play to those identifying those ones. So here there is a like you can like where to how you generate this. Again, we have discussed in the previous slide. So this is contour data organization common layer interface. So this is an example of an algorithm. And then comes the how to fill each slice. So here you have various toolpath generations. So this is matrix. This is simple laying layout. This is another what you call circular toolpath generation. This is simple linear, right? So which of these contouring strategies you use to fill a layer, it depends on what kind of mechanical properties or you are expecting from the part, right? For example, matrix could be a good option for increasing the strength of the part, right? Whereas this may be a weakest kind of thing. Probably this kind of toolpath generation is also good, as long as this part is meant only for some kind of display, but not used in a day-to-day application. Say like sometimes to see the prototype, how we the shape, like for example, like generating a plastic bottle, seeing the different designs of a plastic bottle. In that case, toolpath generation of this nature is good. But whereas if you are like if you take a component which may be ultimately subjected to some fatigue loads. Fatigue loads means, so in that case, like for example, some acting as some kind of small component in an aircraft, which is subject to a lot of cycles of tensile and compressive loads. Then in that case, like tool path generation should be a bit more overlapping, so that increase the, and it could be in both the direction or omnidirection tool path generation, so that the part is equally of good strength in every direction. So this is another example. Then like here you have like examples of slicer software, right? So here we are seeing like slicer creates a tool path more or less intelligent based on geometry of the design file, a percent of infill to save 3D printing time and material, and support structures. Support structure if the job is difficult to print. So that means most of this softwares like Cura software, like which is comes with Ultimaker. So they have a bit of intelligence to decide like what is the lay direction, whether they can spatially come with a toolpath generation which is spatially connected. I was telling in the previous slide, when there is a requirement for only for display, not it is based on these nodes, then a spacer toolpath generation is good enough. So here, this is how like we do that. So you have like I was telling in the beginning. So either you produce the object in STL format or OBJ format, X3D, 3MF. Like 3MF is the they call Microsoft version. AMF is another version. So then you export it to Ultimaker Cura, which is an open source, and then ultimately you print it. So Slicer creates a toolpath, a percent of infill to save 3D printing time and support structures. All right, that is the role of a slicer software like Cura. So here you can see a lot of brands. So Cura, Slick 3R, Craftware, Slice Craftware, so Tinkerine. So there are so many Simplify 3D. Like for example, Simplify 3D can also help us in optimally deciding the support structures, Autodesk, Netfab. So there are plenty of software are there in the internet. So in the cloud, we can use any one of them depending on the application. Now, so coming to other issue with regard to like topology optimization, bionic design. So this is like we call it as these are called lattice structures. So biomimicry structures. Like that means biomimicry means like for example, mimicry means like our body, our bones are supposed to follow this kind of structures. So these lattice structures actually are now becoming very popular, and fortunately, like there are a lot of commercial software which support this. Like for example, Siemens NX, Autodesk Fusion 360, CogniCAD, and then Frustum. Like they do a lot of, they help us to do topological optimization. So here, what we mean by topological optimization is how to improve the weight to um, load reduction, like what you call increasing without compromising on the load bearing capacity of the component. How one can minimize the weight. See, this is a very crucial one in the case of space components like aircraft. Say someone was saying now, like uh, like a 1 kg reduction in the aircraft can save, say, $1 million per year, because that is the impact of weight reduction in the design of aircraft. So that's why we see use of a lot of composites. So apart from using composites, one can also use these lattice structures for weight reduction. Say, for example, here you can see that a 3D printed seat bracket. Here, they have done some kind of topological optimization, which resulted in it was 40% lighter and then 20% stronger. Right? So, in fact, not only it is lighter and stronger, in fact, it has resulted in reducing our assembly overhead. The entire seat bracket, ultimately you make it with one part. So probably here there might be 10 parts, but ultimately you're substituting 10 parts assembly with a single integrated part using lattice lattice structures. So this is the beauty of this. And fortunately, Fusion 360 and all this CAD software, they support these biomimicry of lattice structures. In fact, these lattice structures are very good in the application of in the like absorbing like a lot of impact. Particularly, people are trying these lattice structures to design crash-proof cars. Like now we see a lot of accidents happening in the highways. So if we only substitute those structures with the lattice structures, most of the impact is passed on to these lattice structures, and they easily collapse, protecting the passenger inside the car. So these lattice structures are proving to be a very useful, and to produce these lattice structures conventionally, it is very difficult. But whereas now you are doing this with a very, what you call this lattice structures, you are able to do it very easily thanks to this additive manufacturing um, situation. All right. So here, this is how like you. So topology optimization and bionic design is another important dimension of CAD for AM. So topology optimization. See, because the like you can see that like in fact there are a lot of international competitions are now occurring about challenges where like for example in General Electric, if you visit the General Electric website, they put on certain challenges, challenging the various designers to come up with a model where there is a 40% reduction in the weight as well as stronger 20% increase in the stronger. Such kind of case studies are, lot of case studies are there in the public domain. The only thing is one should have the patience and the perseverance to handle those big projects. Okay, so this is another side of this CAD for AM. And then there is a build simulation software like multi-physics, multi-scale modeling of 3D printing process are there. Like for example, see one there are a lot of limitations in this AM processes. One is a model distortions and residual stresses can happen, and so luckily again there are certain softwares like multi-physics, multi-scaling which is supplied by 3D systems. You have they suggest some kind of compensation, right? Suggest distortion compensation, then model optimal support structures, minimize the risk of printer damage, recoder damage, and then minimize the number of built diodes, predict impact impact of post processing, right? Heat treatment, right? So all these high impact support removal, all these things can be some of the, like, that means before you commit, like before you use it on a you, you use a particular machine to produce certain things, you can simulate. So simulation will save us a lot of money as well as time, and also protect your aim machine, because with the simulation you can foresee what kind of problems you are likely to face when you ultimately produce the part. So here you are optimizing built-up orientation, support configuration, verify influence of operating conditions on distortions, plastic strains, and residual cells. So this is the beauty of this multi-physics, multi-scale modeling, right? Using XP 3D expert. The source is 3D systems, right? And now, and this is another beautiful document uh, which is prepared by C Design Lab of Purdue University, Purdue Engineering. So what is the beauty of this is whether, for example, like depending on the complexity, functionality, material remover, and unsupported structures. So like if you suppose, if you take this uh, a sword symbol or star symbol, this is sword symbol, the part is the same shape as the common stock materials, or is complete and is completely 2D. So this is, like, for example, if you are using a common stock material to produce in 3D in AM, it is waste of your time. Similarly, like mating surface uh, surface or bearing surface are expected to endure 1,000+ cycles. So suppose producing this particular mating surfaces using AM is waste, because normally AM processes are weak in fatigue situations, like where cyclical loads are there. So producing support structures or mating surfaces which are subject to a lot of cyclical loads, producing using AM is wasteful of your time. Similarly, like material removal also, the part is smaller than that of the or the same size as the required support. Suppose there is a overhang. Overhang is very small, but the amount of support material that is needed here is very high. So this is not a very good candidate for producing the part using AM means. See, similarly, this also, there are long unsupported features. So there is, it is looking some kind of a dog, right? So there is a lot of long and unsupported one. So producing this part using AM is a waste of your time. Whereas here, this is okay. Part is oriented, so there are no overhang features. It is just reverse of this. Producing here using this is okay. Like similarly, like material removal, like here you should not break your head to remove the material which are in the uh, reserve, not like internal cavities or channels or holes do not have openings for removing the materials. So in that case also, AM is not good. So like this, similarly thin features don't produce using AM process, thin features which are less than 1.5 mm, right? So if the walls are more than say 3 mm, then you can go for AIM process. Similarly, stress concentration. The interior corners have no chamfer. Then these are not, AIM process are not good enough. Like if you have chamfers, then it is good. So tight tolerances, don't go for AIM. Similarly, geometric exactness, again, don't go for AIM. All right. So if you give points for this, so like if here he says starred ratings, consider a different manufacturing process. Strongly consider a different manufacturing process. Don't use AM. So like this, these two are not good candidates for. Similarly, these two are not good candidates for producing through AM means. So similarly, he says total score 33 to 40 needs a redesign. If you get a total score of both complexity and as well as this one, stress concentration tolerances, if you add them together, if you get the total score as more than 33, needs a redesign. So you go for a new design so that probably you can use AM. But whereas if you get a score of 5 to 15, then higher likelihood of success if you using through AM. So you see, in this way, like design for AM, this particular sheet is very informative, which is produced by Purdue Engineering, like C Design Lab. So one can easily go through this, right? So now another aspect of CAD for AIM is this process or quality monitoring. So starting material specification, like for example, specification and quality. See, your input raw material should also be of good quality. Like for example, what should be the average size of the powder, right? What should be the constituent of the powder? What kind of material? If it you are whether you are using titanium or some other material. So you should also see like what is the size of each particle. Whether the average size should be 100 nanometers or 200 nanometers, and then post-process materials, like what kind of, whether you are going to use non-destructive testing or destructive testing, right? And then dimensional accuracy and surface finish. So what kind of surface finish you are getting? Then in situ part monitoring, like melt pool and heat map. Like in situ means when the process is going on, how the machine is able to monitor its quality, like dynamically reading the melt pool temperature and then heat map, how like using some thermal cameras or heat map, like they should able to tell like this is the how the part is getting cooled, so that you will know like whether the part is unnecessarily landing up with some kind of what you call internal stresses, right? So then machine parameters, laser power, nozzle monitoring, temperature, and then the process environment. Like for example, like uh, you see, for example, you may not use airflow or something like that. In the case of titanium, if you are using metal 3D, because mostly that happens in a neutral gas like argon. But in the FDM process, this is okay. Like it is open to, similarly even SLA also. I think it is not a issue. But like it is a process environment should be very pakka when you are doing some metal 3D printing, like particularly titanium, which is prone to a lot of oxidation. So you should have very good mm, process environment to, so that you can totally avoid the oxidation of the when you're producing that particular part. And then we have so here we have there are other issues like product life cycle management and workflow optimization. See, in fact, like as in the introduction, Manjaya was saying, no, like those those who are not aware, like in the NIT Warangal, we are setting up a Siemens Center of Excellence, so for which I am in charge. So in that, as part of that, we are setting up 13 labs. So out of 13 labs, one lab is exclusively dedicated to AM process. That you like. Only thing is we are using, we are buying a Stratasys machine, FDM, using FDM mode. So here, fortunately, this Siemens NX is such a huge software. Like it takes years for someone to master the entire software. It has so many modules. One of the modules is lattice structure design, topological optimization. All those things you can do using Siemens NX. And in fact, like it has a PLM module also in the form of Team Center, where you take care of the entire product life cycle needs of the a particular product. Like even you look at the how to um, harvest a product when its life is over, in terms of using some parts and for another product, or recycling certain other parts for recycling and using it in another product. So all those things are there. So these are um, the issues that, like so here you use mm, various closed loop control systems for process control for metal AM, right? So here you can see print, write, 3D, inspect, contour, in process geometry data, in process metallurgical data. So that means here in situ kind of process monitoring is available in metal AM, right? And there are other like you can control quality using, so uh, you use workflow augmentation also, like evaluate, purchase, produce, analyze, right? And then workflow structures. So there are so many softwares like Link 3D, 3 Your Mind, and then Siemens NX, and then PrintRite 3D. So many softwares are there for process control, and also looking for the from the perspective of the entire product life cycle needs of a part, for simplicity as well as traceability. Traceability means like if you have uh, traceability means like a particular part can be used in multiple products. So what is the how many other products this particular nut or bolt is being used, right? Or suppose you have come across a part and you want to find out what is where that part goes into in a particular product, where it is exactly fitted into, right? And what is its history of failure, and the what is its vulnerability to various forces during the usage of the product. Okay, so you do correlation studies, then trend analysis, visualization tools, engineering tools, integrated data analytics and quality metrics. See, this is where your machine learning and deep learning is coming into play to establish some kind of trend analysis. Like for example, like you see that a particular part is getting frequently failed, so you can able to do that. All right. So this is, and then artificial intelligence supported AM. Like for example, this Inkbit is another. Um, they use SLA, and they are doing multi-metal inkjet printing. A digital print record for each layer, data used to train a machine learning algorithm, voxel level real-time feedback control, right? This incidentally, this Inkbit is a technology one which is being supported by a lot of firms, right? For example, like this Inkbit. In fact, a lot of you can Google this particular company. You find that this company is being supported by none other than Gurudas Deshpande. Gurudas Deshpande, he's co-brother of Narayana Murthy. You know, so this Gurudas Deshpande, he's a he has set up so many companies, and he is also in the board of MIT board of directors. So he's a big man, and under his supervision, this particular company is now doing wonders. So one can visit this company, how they have shown like how AI and AI for FM is being used. So you can see here, these are the nothing but different kinds of lattice structures, and which can be used in various applications like crash testing, then um, like using as a to reduce the strength to weight ratio, right? Applications, aircraft applications like that. Then, like here, now latest one is like people are using blockchain for 3D printing verification and validation, right? So, um, you know, now people are very crazy about this Bitcoin kind of currency. But actually, originally, blockchain is very good way to secure your data, because whenever it has such a beautiful secure features, like people cannot just copy a particular uh, what you call diagram or 3D model just like that. They can't steal unless you have some kind of secure permissions. So this is and and in fact, like it's such a beautiful data security app, this blockchain. You can get even the history of like how many people have used over a period of time, who, what is their background, like that. So it is a very beautiful tool to increase the uh, data security of your CAD models. All right. So this is one way to improve your security setup. So with this, I complete the CAD part of our discussion. So in another half an hour, I will complete the file formats. So at this point of time, if somebody has any doubts, I can quickly clear it, and so that we can safely move for hello. Manjay garu?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your presentation on the advanced
No,
CAD.
no. Shall I cover the file formats also?
Sir, actually, it takes another 1 hour, sir.
Huh?
How much hour takes, sir? It will another 1 hour, or
I don't know.
shall we give break, sir? 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. Because I have, I quickly complete that file formats also.
We'll give 5 10 minutes back.
This is a 3D printing file formats and issues. Like so here, what we are going to, I'm going to discuss is STL file format, how it looks like, advantage of STL files, challenges of STL files, and AMF file formats. All right. Now coming to uh, no, anyway, I'll just skip some of these slides because it is not directly related to you. Yeah, this is a important one. Like for example, um, by default now every machine accepts HTML as a interface format. Like whatever that machine may be, like now HTML has become almost standard. Just like it is equivalent to like saying PostScript. See now PostScript has become a default medium of acceptance by any printer. You take either HP or Canon, whatever printer you are talking about, brother, whatever printer you are talking about, they all accept PostScript. So when you are saying like print command, when you are pressing print command in a printer, what it is doing essentially is converting your printed document into PostScript and transferring it to the machine, because only machine will, a printer will understand only PostScript language. Similarly here in just like a CNC machine will understand only G and M codes. So what is G and M code for a CNC machine? What is nothing but STL for. So that has become such a de facto standard, right? So uh, just like so this PostScript actually it was invented by Adobe people, like the people who invented a PDF format. So and in fact the PostScript was actually popularized by none other than Apple founder, that is Steve Jobs. And what is the beauty of PostScript is it made us to uh, implement a strategy called YCYG. YCYG means what you see is what you get. That is, but now STL is like what you see, what you get, what you build. So what you see is what you build. So it is 3D. So what is PostScript for YCYG is STL is for YCYB. So this is the beauty of STL. So again, anyway, we will skip this. So anyway, this is only a process plan how STL files get sliced up and then put it and post processing, how it happens here. All right, that is there. And then so what is the inside? How a STL file will look like? So as I told you now, like in what we are doing in when you are converting a CAD file, native format of a CAD file into STL file format. So what we are doing is we are just 1 minute. So here, a typical facet information will contain 12 data points. So here, this is like, for example, if you take a cube, it has a 12 facets information, right? And each facet will have a 12 data points. 9 data points belong to the 3 vertices of the triangle, as well as the face normal, Ni, Nj, Nk. So these are in vector format. So this is how each STL file is represented in the form of facet information. So so there is a there they apply a right hand rule, like the whenever the faces a face on face normal projects outside, that means the other side it is a solid. So that is the convention, and this is decided based on the right hand rule, like that is depicted here in this. And here you can see that like if like there are certain vertex to vertex rule also is there. Triangle must share exactly 2 common vertices with each adjacent triangle. So this is also uh, one rule like that we see here. And then whenever we are generating from native format to STL format, like at that time, the translator, the so-called translator software will ask certain options to be executed. One is triangulation tolerance, adjacency tolerance, auto normal generation, normal display, triangle display, header information. All these things you have to create to do whenever you want to collect a create a what do you call this STL file from an A2 format. So triangulation tolerance means we will see in the next slides. So what are the advantages of STL file is easy conversion. It's very simple because we always use so here we use this what are the advantages with this is easy conversion and wide range of input um, is possible, all right? And in fact, simple slicing algorithm. So we discussed this slicing algorithm now, like where the slicing plane should intersect with the one of the sides of the each triangle. Then only you will get a profile of each plane, slicing plane. So and that finding out the intersecting points is very easy using that formula. So this is what we do in. Then we have ability to split models. Expert. So here, then ability to split models, and then so these are the advantages. So problems due to a triangular foundation is approximation, because you have to anyway this I will show you figuratively. Problem intrinsic to STL format is file size, truncation, others, incompleteness, inconsistency, inconsistent normals, incorrect normal. So problem due to data conversion and transfer algorithms is gaps, internal walls, degenerate facets. I was telling about this degenerate facets, no? Geometric degeneracy, topological degeneracy, right? And then you see, this is the like one of the approximation issues regarding approximation. Say, for example, here a major problem with the triangulated bond is curved inference can only be approximated triangular facets. A large number of facets give a high approximation accuracy, but results in an extremely large amount of data. So this is one drawback of So if you increase the triangulation density matrix, then it results in large amount of data. So you have to decide how much approximation you can bear. So see in this AM, in every stage there is a kind of you have to decide about the trade-off, right? Accuracy versus large amount of data. So here the trade-off is how much accuracy you want, and accordingly you have to say. But anyway, now fortunately, large data is not a now a major issue, because now the memories have become cheaper, the computational power has increased, like Moore's law of computing. Now, I don't know whether some of you are aware of Moore's law of computing, like where we have, as per Moore's law, the computational power of a processor will increase, doubles every 18 months. So in olden days, this is a major issue, but now large data or processing large data is not an issue. Then also processing power is also very high. See, in fact, like one of the, if you are able to implement machine learning algorithms and deep learning algorithms easily at a laptop level, it is purely because of Moore's law only, Moore's law of computing, right? We are able to do faster calculations with more memories, okay, more data. Then file size, like file size can be like in a file, there is a lot of duplication in the STL file format. So there is a lot of, and there is a truncation errors are there. Because and due to that, these truncation errors only, you have the issues of topological and uh, yeah, what do you call geometrical degeneracy is there. So and then we have uh, so this is what we call it as like inconsistent normals, incorrect normals are there. Like you can see here, these normals are correct normals and flipped normals. Like so, because of this conversion algorithms, and as well as we said, na truncation errors, we see that kind of issues cropping up. So we have to use some some software to correct that. Fortunately, those softwares are also there. So here, for example, here this curve is approximated by straight lines here, and here you see small gap, right? So when you are slicing it, what happens is like you get a gap like this, and here uh, sometimes when you are actually, like since it is not connected, the fill pattern doesn't happen properly, so naturally you get an incorrect product. So fortunately we have a repairing kind of um, magic software is there, so it will try to repair all these shortcomings. So these internal walls, due to like incorrect joining of, see, if you don't use properly the union command in CSG approach, this 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 kind of error is likely to happen, right? So here, that is what I say, like topological degeneracy. Like here, what we are finding is like a degenerate triangle with three coincident vertices a point. So here 3 points have and 2 points have come, two coincidental, right? Similarly, geometrical degeneration happens when all the three vertices happen to lie on a single straight line, which is not possible, right? So you cannot make a triangle out of when the three vertices are collinear. right? That is geometrical degeneracy. So these topological degeneracy and the geometric degeneracy happen when mostly because of truncation errors, right? And the incorrect intersections. So here, when your slicing plane is not exactly intersecting with the facets properly, then it will give rise to interpenetrations, and so you don't get the proper profile of the slicing plane, right? Profile of the So here you can see like a 3D model, 3D slicer layer, and then one. But so here, what is happening here is here the gap has come somehow. This particular rectangular facet here has not been properly triangulated. So what is happening is when the slicing plane cuts it, so what happens is you see that the slice has not come a closed polygon. So when you try to run it on a AM machine, the nozzle will go outside the boundary because it doesn't see any boundary there. So such kind of things can happen when there is a when you are not able to um, create a proper tessellated file, or when you are not uh, properly what you call triangulate body, a surface. So a challenge of STL is duplicate information, leaks, inconsistency, does not scale well to high resolution lattices, does not support color, materials, and orientation. Like FGM kind of things you can't do using STL file. FGM means functionally graded materials. So, we are sometimes Z Corp. Z Corp is famous for creating chemistry molecules. So that is not they are not able to do it proper modeling. Like they can't use STL file. They have to use improved neutral file format to do that. Okay, and then anyway we have meta formats of formats. So uh, like here we do that. Um, So now AMF format has come, which has replaced the STL. Like people are slowly migrating to XML because this is based on extensible markup language. So it is a meta format. It is like a format of formats. So it is text based, easy to read, parse. You can do a lot of interrogation. You can use existing editing tools. Extensible, highly compressible. All right. So, with AMF, you can define volume and material, color properties, materials can be combined, graded material, lattice structures. In fact, like it can support constellation of objects repeatedly. Like there are so many rivets in an aircraft fuselage, so you need not create every rivet separately. You can create a constellation of. So like there are in an aircraft 10,000 rivets may be there, but you need not again create each and every rivet. It can be constellation of objects can be created. Then this is an example of AMF structure which uses XML format. So there is a lot of tagging code is there. So vertex, triangle, and then what is the if you see like the beauty of AMF structure is like compressibility. Like if a traditional ASCII STL takes a typical size for a rook is so much, like a 750, AMF compressed file will occupy only 50 or 20 bytes, right? So that is why people are encouraging us to migrate to AMF format instead of STL, right? And the MEMF structure also supports curved patches instead of simply planar patch. That is thereby increasing the representation of the accurate representation of the free-form surfaces. So this is like how recursive triangle subdivision that is supported in AMF will improve the object representation. So using 4 to the power of n planar triangle method rule, and then like basics improved this is what is we are showing like how accuracy is improved in AMF structure. So this is some functional how it supports a graded material, right, and multiple materials and microstructure. So AMF is still in the process of what do you call development. So in fact, a lot of research is happening here also, like in terms of like how to incorporate tolerances, uh, surface and depth textures, data encryption, like using some kind of blockchain kind of stuff, external references, subassemblies, process control, non-volumetric support structures, non-mesh. So these are the future plans that is they are planning for AMF structure. So these are the common STL5 formats. All right. So with this, I complete my lecture on CAD and STL5 formats. Any questions? I think it is a very lengthy lecture, but given the amount of topic, the kind of topic given is had to take a lot of time. Manji Garu?
Yes, sir.
So,
Over, sir.
I'm over, sir. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving a insights of the CAD for additive manufacturing and how we can make use CAD file and how we can use the STL file, how to edit all these things. Thank you for this insights of this AIM processing, how to adjusting with CAD process and all, sir. And participants, if you have any queries, can unmute and directly ask to Professor. Or you can put it in the chat box also. Participants, any queries?
I think most of them got exhausted.
Professor Krishnanand,
Yes,
very
sir.
lucidly explained, very nicely explained. I mean, things have been made so simple. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There are questions in chat box.
Yeah, one query we got, sir. Why we are using STL file format still?
No, because of its simplicity. Like it is like we are using still QWERTY keyboard, even though it is not an efficient keyboard. See, it is like as I told you in the beginning, STL is like a postscript. So most of it takes some time for people to migrate from STL to AMF. So till that time, but unfortunately, AMF is also in the process of development only. Like textures, those things are still yet to be, and external reference things they are to get there. That's why like STL is still there. It is a legacy which we have to carry for some more time. It's a burden you have to carry. But at the same time, you should also appreciate the developer, because this STL file was developed in 1981 when the computer resources are in short supply, and there is a need for data redundancy, so that even if one point gets corrupted, you can still recover. So Chuck Hull or Charles Hull, who developed this, like he went for a very simple strategy, because of the kind of computational power available during that time, and everything is the file formats are in the initial stage. So that's why. And but all these 20 years you are operating STL, and the AMF is still in the process of development. So it takes a bit of time for us to migrate to AMF. Okay. Okay, Manji Garu?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Huh?
Software. The participants are asking some software, sir.
Uh-huh. So software means in the, see, you can start with open source.
Cura is there, Magics are there.
Ah,
Materialize, yeah. Even this NetFab is also free versions are available. You can start with that initial softwares, and even 3D Expert we are having in the institute. Anyhow, tomorrow during the lab session we are going to train all those things, sir.
yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again for
Yeah.
giving insights of this CAD for additive manufacturing, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, friends, for patience.